Okay.
Oh,
Oh, good morning, everyone. Hey,
good morning.
welcome to Fabric Fridays. I'm Chris Wagner.
Woohoo.
This is Kevin Arnold.
Hi, everybody. So
Uh,
happy to be here. Welcome.
yes, we're so excited to see everyone in the channel. See, Jack even got up this morning. Thanks so much, Jack. Donald, Amon, Kevin. Well, Kevin, Data Donna. I don't know who Data Donna is. Do you know Data Donna?
No, this is the first. Jessica was introducing herself to Data Donna in
Oh,
the chat. So I don't know that I've seen that she said where she's from yet, but welcome, Data Donna.
yeah, excited. So, in the chat, please drop where you're from. But this is going to be our weekly Fabric Fridays, where we're going to be
Mm-hmm.
going deep into everything Fabric, introducing you to what Microsoft Fabric is. Right?
Right. Yeah, Microsoft Fabric. I'm sure everybody has heard by now, right? There's the fabulous new offering, software as a service offering from Microsoft. There's a ton of content that's been put out there. We'll go through some of that content in different episodes. We'll introduce some of our own content, what we've seen, hopefully demos that'll help you everybody else out. Chris, I know you've put a bunch of things out this week. I've been seeing your YouTube channel, um, having great interviews with people on your Wednesday segment. Just what have you kind of found, with all the excitement and everything? Do you see it slowing down a little bit, or is it still just way up there for Fabric right now?
Oh no, I mean, still people are super engaged with it. They're still trying to understand what is this, and I got to kind of thinking as In fact, I think we were talking about this last Friday. Was this is very much like a massive major rollout, like back in the day when a new version of SQL Server would come out.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Except for, I think this is more of um, not just SQL Server coming out, but we're seeing okay, here's everything like data engineering and everything data science. And I think the big challenge here is people don't even know what that is, right? When I say data
Mm-hmm.
engineering, those are just two words that's separated. People understand data, they understand engineering. When you bring them together, what does that entail? Same thing on data science. What does it mean to do data science? Well, now it's all in the portal, and now we can start to do that, right?
Yeah, and I think I can't remember if it was on one of your live streams or one of our Saturday morning sessions. We were talking about um, how this can really explode into what we keep calling the citizen area, right?
Yep.
So, how we got with Power BI starting off with people producing good visuals, just and then evolving into more of a citizen BI developer with Power Query, other things. But now this is going to open up even more for the citizen, the people from the business to get involved with what happens typically in a black box behind the scenes within IT, right? It doesn't mean that they'll be doing all of it, but the more people learn and understand about it from both sides, right? It,
Mm-hmm.
it brings the technical people closer to what the business knows and the business people closer to the technical side. So they're able to have conversations. And then the people that do want to keep expanding and become more and more citizen developers, whether that's a citizen data scientist, citizen data engineer, or a little bit of all of that, the tools are going to make it easier to do that. The big thing that I keep hearing and I totally agree with is you could have chosen a lot of these technologies, say on the Azure portal, but you had to understand the Azure portal, how to connect them all together, where the security things were at. This has taken a lot of that away, almost all of it away. Uh, and
Well,
so,
I that's no small feat because
no,
just
not at all.
I mean, okay, go to the Azure portal, but in the Azure portal, there's like thousands of different offerings. Which ones do you need? Which ones do you not need? What combinations of do you need? That's like potentially infinite in the variations you could possibly put together.
Hmm.
this radically simplifies that and takes you I think Mim said it took you straight to coding, right? So
Hmm.
instead of like having to know how to put all these things together, it just gets you right in there, right?
Right. Yeah, and I think the skills that everybody has had, for this Fabric Friday, what I'm kind of hoping is that we'll take this at least for a while from the lens of people coming from the Power BI side. That seems to be a lot of the people that we interact with, and so I think we'll try to show y'all things that we see coming from the Power BI side, how to move into some of the other sides, or how to kind of even get started, and some of that we'll touch on today. And then, as you mentioned, kind of in the introduction, right? Even for the people that are bigger into the back end data engineering, we'll hit on things from that as well. Hopefully, throughout as we see this Fabric Friday segment evolve, right? As we know, we may have a plan for it, and then once we get punched in the face, it'll move around, it'll change. But hopefully, it'll be valuable. We got some good chat going on already, so that's good.
Well,
Are there other
and
goals that you go ahead?
yeah, I think one of the big things I want to bring along with this is not just like an introduction, but also uh, a deeper understanding of what it means to
Hmm.
do data engineering, right? Or to
Hmm.
do data science. And Simon Whitley posted something yesterday like, hey, there's more to data engineering than just dropping stuff in a lakehouse. And
Right.
the way he kind of posted it, like I sent him a private DM. I was going to blow it up on LinkedIn. I'm like, no, I shouldn't do that. I sent him a DM, and he's like, no, it wasn't intended that. Just articulating that there is a ton of work that data engineers do. It's kind of why, like, I know lots of analysts have been like, hey, I asked for something from data engineering, and it takes a year for it to come out. Well, that's because there's a lot of work to
Hmm.
bring the data in, to cleanse it, to automate it, to make sure that it's highly available, to make sure that it's right, to make sure, like, there's tons of work that goes into that. That you think, hey, I do a lot of the stuff in Power Query, no big deal. But there's economies of scale that start to work against a data engineer in some ways that like hey they're offering these data products out to the entire company and they
Hmm.
have to have it they have to manage thousands of these things versus an analyst who's working with not necessarily a small number of data feeds but hey, if something's wrong, they reload it, right?
Yep.
In many cases, they have a very manual process with that, where data engineers don't. And so,
Right.
I think this is going to bring a lot of mutual respect uh, to understanding how data engineering works, but also on the data engineering side, they're going to see the challenges that we have. If you're working with Power BI data models and oh whoopsies, I've just started to introduce duplicate records. To the data
Right.
engineer, slap a distinct on it, no big deal. You can deal with that. Like, nope, no, that causes problems in an analytical model, right? Because it's tuned for speed. And then data science, we're going to get that level of understanding there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I saw that post yesterday as well, and I fully agreed with. I think it was the one. It was kind of like a meme or whatever that where he talked about there's more to a data lake than just pushing everything into one place. Um, or maybe there was even a video that I missed. But yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. And the people that are professional data engineers have higher SLAs on them than what somebody from a citizen side. And I think this is going to allow, again, the blend of the two, right? So we could have the data engineers work into the same place, get everything into OneLake, and maybe it's still going to take them the same amount of time to do the rigorous testing, validation, making sure that it's fully recoverable, the things you expect from an enterprise SLA. But then at the same time, some of that data could be easily shared with the citizen data engineer that could then just bring in their own CSV or Excel file and enhance it and use it and signify, push it out in a less SLA environment, right? That I think we kind of get into this in Power BI as we talk about certified reports, promote it, and stuff like that, right? And how do you know that something's coming from a certified data set or whatever? I think we'll find as this evolves, we're going to get even into that same type of setup. How do we come up with frameworks and processes and everything to handle all of that? So,
And you're spot on. And a little bit of housekeeping because we're about to go over to Kevin's PC because Kevin has been slaving night and day since last Friday without any other attention to anything going on in his life. It's been nuts preparing some demo material for you. But some housekeeping. We're going to, again, appropriate some stuff from Mr. Roche. So Matthew's rules or Guy in the Cube rules are going to apply. So please, if you're in the chat, we do want to answer your questions because we're here for you. We could talk about this stuff ourselves if we want to. So we really do want to help you. So if you have questions, post those into the chat. We are happy to talk them through, help you answer them, help you bring understanding to what's going on. But please preface that question with a Q colon so we can queue that up and we can know that it's there. And then rule number 2, please don't repeat any questions. If you're spamming, the moderators that are out there will block you and put you on timeout. We don't want to necessarily have to do that. We haven't had any issues with that, but we now have more people in our live stream than I do on a regular basis. So maybe that's about to become a
good
problem.
Marketing.
Yes. Well, and speaking of marketing, if you want to show your support for Fabric Fridays or just Fabric, down below there's a merch link. You can get your own Fabric t-shirt or the Fabric Fridays. Throw in the double F. That's out there. It's got a nice little stylish fabric on the front and a Fabric logo on the back, so do check that out. All right? But
nice.
Let's head on over to Kevin's PC and let's check it out.
Yeah, so what we wanted to start with is the very basics, right? And I know there's been some articles, some videos, even Guy in a Cube did a couple videos on, how do you enable Fabric? What is it, how do you get going? So what I have on my screen here is I have 2 users in Power BI. The one on the left that says Kevin, that is my tenant admin. And then the one that has no name here is just a regular user that a lot of you might be, kind of this is your normal role, right? You may not play the tenant admin. And the place that I'm doing this is a Microsoft Dev 365 tenant. Right? If you have not set up your own dev tenant yet, I highly, highly recommend that you do that. I have a video over on my YouTube channel. Shannon and Stephanie, I think it is, right? That works with the data witches. They have articles out there. Go set up your dev tenant. But we'll see here that if we look down below on either one of them, right, we don't have the persona picker. I'll stick on just this side because that's what's there, right? The persona picker should be down somewhere in this area. And we could see that we don't have that. So if we're going to come back up here, and as a regular user, I'm going to go
hang on, Kevin, and we have our first super chat. So Mark Walters, thank you so much. Woo! 15 minutes, less than 15 minutes in, we're kicking butt here. So that's awesome.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks. Yeah.
So I'm going to come in.
And then Mark has a question that goes along with that. And,
go ahead.
And maybe we could jump into that one. Kevin, when is Data Factory more appropriate than data engineering?
I currently see Data Factory as your initial ingest step. Mm-hmm. It's going to have more connectors, right? Yep. Simplified connectors to bring in. And plus, there's a lot of people that have skills in Azure Data Factory, which I'm not going to say that it's all one for one, but it's very, very close, right? They're always, even when Microsoft introduced Synapse and they had Data Factory and Synapse, it had a little different flavor than Azure Data Factory, but it's so close, the skills are transferable. Same thing here. the skills are going to be transferable into Fabric, and you're probably going to use it because there are so many patterns out there. And if I go off camera in a second, I have a book that is, I'm looking at it right now, Azure Data Factory by example, right? And a lot of those could be reused. So that's going to be maybe your first ingest, maybe a little bit of transformation in there, that you're just really going to bring in to land your data. Then the data engineering, getting into notebooks, the probably PySpark or PySQL or Spark SQL. I mean, then you're going to get into that more heavy lifting to do your transformations, reshaping of the data into your next couple layers, depending on what architecture you choose. Would
Well,
you agree, Chris? Or yeah,
yeah, and maybe I could even go a little higher level than what you did. You're 100% spot on. But when I think of data engineering, I think of Data Factory as a tool I use when I put on my data engineering hat, right? So when I put on my hat, like I'm going to be engineering, bringing data in, doing data with it. One of the tools is going to be Data Factory. One of the big things I'm going to be doing with Data Factory is I'm going to be, finding that source, kind of like how like Power Query is able to bring stuff in, and I'm going to use Data Factory to build out my bronze layer of data. And you're going to hear us talk a lot about what's called the medallion architecture, or bronze, silver, gold, and now diamond layers when it comes to managing our data. The bronze, which is the raw data that comes in from our source systems, that's Data Factory is amazing at that, right? So you use Data Factory to load and populate your bronze layer. As Kevin says, and I think we're actually going to see this in parallel. You would then use like notebooks to process and transform that data, or you would use Dataflow Gen 2 to do that. You might, along with that, allow or use Data Factory for orchestration. So that Data Factory lands the data into your bronze layer, and then Data Factory, while it doesn't know what's in the notebook, it knows what notebook should next run, and says, okay, now I loaded all my CRM data. Now I run these notebooks to add in my business definitions into my bronze, add in my modeling stuff for my gold, and then I process the following data sets inside of my diamond. All right.
Yeah, the orchestration, I'm glad you added that. That's going to be a huge part that Data Factory is going to be used for.
Right. And I think that's a connector that's often missed, right? Like people go, oh, Data Factory for land, and then I go into notebooks. And then they go, well, how the heck do I run my notebooks, right? Like I got my notebooks, what do I do next, right? And,
right, because Fabric did add a way to trigger notebooks on a schedule. But without an orchestration piece that Data Factory gives to you, it is extremely hard to say, okay, start this notebook at 2 a.m. and this one at 2:15, and you would drive yourself crazy if you try to do it that way without orchestration through Data Factory.
That is spot on. And we have another super chat. Thank you, Altenter or Jessica. Thank you so much she says, thank you so much for taking the time to educate all of us. This is so valuable to me. We hope it really is. Connecting these dots, I think, is going to be one of the most valuable things we can bring as Fabric comes out, because I think so many people in business know what data is or know how to start working with data, but knowing when to grab Data Factory or grab a notebook or do these different things will seem like an impossible gulf. Like, how do you bridge it? You won't know. And hopefully through these conversations, we can help make those bridges for you and make this a much easier transition.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Let's see if we could get back to enabling Fabric through, just to kind of reset, right? I have two users here. The light blue is the light blue bordered window is just a regular user, where the gray bordered window is my tenant admin. And if I look at settings and the admin portal as just a regular user, you see I don't see very much. All I see is capacity settings, right? I do see this trial, but I go out there and, there's really nothing that I could do. So I'm going to call myself. I'm going to call Kevin, say, hey, Kevin, admin, I need this enabled. Can you go ahead and do that? And they go through whatever vetting process that they need. And they go, okay, well, how do I do that? Well, they're going to come out to settings, admin portal themselves. And you see, they're going to see a different view. They have this view here. Let me expand that and then come in on it. Is they have more options where one of them is the fabric preview. And as I think it's been talked about quite a bit, right now it's been rolled out, turned off by default. And come July 1st, it's just going to be able to be turned on. So if you have the type of admins that don't pay attention and you don't want to tell them about it and you want to just wait till July 1st, don't say anything to them, right? And then all of a sudden they'll show up, they'll be surprised, and you might go do the chasing after that. Might be nice, talk to them, say, hey, maybe we want to put this out for just a few people. So the first thing that they're going to have to do is uncheck this box, and then they can come in here and change the disabled to enabled. And they could enable it for, let me zoom back in on that so you could see it. Once they click enable, they could choose the entire organization, a specific security group. That security group needs to be set up in Azure Active Directory. And you could change that to be an exception list so that everybody could do it except some people. So if you don't want Jack from accounting, sorry, Jack, I didn't mean to totally pick your name, but everybody but Jack could do it. So now we're going to hit apply on this, and it'll tell you that this could take upwards of 15 minutes. In my experience, it usually is not 15 minutes worth of time. So how do you know when it's actually there? I'm going to hit refresh on this browser as the admin, and I don't know that Zoom's going to go all the way down to the bottom. It does. You can see now at the bottom here that I have the persona picker. Chris, I know you know a lot about the personas, right? Because didn't you put something out about you have, as many of us, you have your own multiple personas now, right?
So yes, please do. I have some shorts out. I'm going to be continuing to make some shorts that go into the different personas so we can explore that area. I'm not currently set up to flip right over to them right now.
No,
but,
that's fine.
We'll get to them in a bit.
I just wanted to plug that a little bit and let you know.
Thank you.
I did see him. I don't know. I watched all of them. Let's go back to my screen before I see Bob has a question, but let's finish this out real quick. Okay, so now as the admin, I had the persona switcher. I'm going to come back over here as the regular user and refresh there. And you can see on this screen, I also have the persona switcher. Sorry, my taskbar came up on that. So now, what do I need to do? Well, this is a good question. I'm not 100% sure at this point. So if we come up here, and since I was trying to do this live, I didn't have it all scripted out. But if we come in, I have this trial. Let's go back to our settings, admin portal. And we come to the trial. We could do learn more. And go to the Fabric homepage. It's going to sign in. So that's kind of interesting. So let's just pick. Oh, okay. Interesting. As I navigate through that, I have more items here now. So let's try it like this, where I think if I create a new workspace.
And while Kevin's typing that in, a good rule of thumb is anytime you start doing something in Microsoft Fabric, spin up a new workspace, especially during this trial period and as we're playing to get
Mm-hmm.
things up and running. Don't muddy up the waters because we're still very new to this. But I think some of the things we're going to start to see is how we manage our workspaces is going to become synonymous with how we manage servers, how we manage blocks of compute, and how we manage security boundaries. So I think,
There was,
go ahead.
go- uh, yeah, keep. I think there was a second setting over here that I need to look for as the admin that allowed trying Fabric features, and I'm not
It
seeing
was
it
just
right
at the
now.
it was just at the top. They moved it to the top. Yeah, that's enabled.
Yeah, there was a second setting. Here it is.
Oh,
Users can try. Well, that's turned on because this one needs to be turned on as well. This is the one I was looking for,
yes. Okay.
and it is on. And now let's see if I could start a trial as if I come back into settings, go into capacity settings as the admin. Yeah, I think there's another. Let's see here. Is if I'm going to switch to persona of data engineering and I'm going to try a lakehouse. There we go. That was the window I was looking for. Even as a regular user, because now you have your persona switcher, you see it just prepared a trial capacity
Can you zoom in on that,
assigned.
Kevin?
Yes. Sorry.
No problem.
So once I clicked on the Lakehouse preview, or I would assume any of these previews, now it started to successfully upgrade to a free Microsoft Fabric preview trial. And so it prepared the trial capacity, assigned this workspace. It's whatever workspace that I happen to be looking at the time. So right now, this looks like it could be my workspace. We'll find out here in just a second. And it finished the upgrade, so it's there now. So let's say okay. And I'm going to make this one itself the biggest. We're going to call it um, New Lake House. Let me totally expand this screen so it's bigger, since this is the user we're working with. You see we have it. I believe it's in my workspace. Let's look back. It certainly is. See, this fell right into my workspace. My workspace became a diamond level. Let's try real quick to create a new workspace. So in case we want
So
to share
let's
this,
throw a little like word of caution out there. Please don't put any of this stuff in my workspace. Uh, Bad juju happens in my workspace. So
I agree. So
yeah.
follow the probably the good idea to do is create a new workspace. Is that's what I should have done. Then clicked on one of the new objects, right? Like Lake House or whatever, and then it would have assigned that to the capacity. Sorry. So I'm going to come down here, create a new workspace, and you can see now I have select trial available, so I could assign it to my trial workspace by clicking this. If I wanted to change it to pro or premium per user, because I didn't want this workspace to be in that, I could definitely do that as well. So I'm going to say apply. It's going to create me a new workspace, and you can see it's got the diamond up here. This is how you know that it's premium, and anything that is premium is going to have the Fabric workload, the Fabric items available to you. So it can be that simple to actually stand up and get going with Fabric. You see, what did that take us? 5-10 minutes here, with even with my typing mistakes. So, pretty simple. Do we want to run through the questions, Chris? Were there ones that specific to this?
Yeah, I think we had one question come in about how do you get started in, or how do you protect your enterprise medallion architecture, your bronze, silver, gold from the rest of your organization? Now, my comment was I think that is an episode in and of itself, but I would be interested on your take on your thoughts on that.
Um, yeah, I do think it would be an episode within itself. The Some of the stuff around the OneLake security is still evolving and still going to be mentioned, right? But a lot of it, especially in Fabric, is what's called role-based access. So similar to what we've seen in Power BI, the idea of coming into a workspace, assigning as a viewer, member, contributor, setup. Were you still hearing me? I show muted. Sorry, there was something else. So you're going to have those type of roles within those workspaces. And so the data you have within those workspaces, whether you're using shortcuts to other workspaces or whatever, will be accessible to people in those workspaces. So you're going to have to think about how you're laying out workspaces a lot more and the access you're giving to each one. And as we learn what those different roles have for each one. What's exciting that's coming that they have talked about is with OneLake having, are they calling it the One Security or whatever? But
Yep.
being able to define, security rules that are handled by each one of the engines. We actually don't know a whole lot about that right now. I don't think it's fully baked into the preview that's happening. So more on that to come.
Yep.
As
and
we learn.
If you want to know more about the security in OneLake, make sure you join my live stream on Monday at 12:30 Central. I'll have Josh Kaplan and Elizabeth Oldag on. They're the PMs. They own OneLake. They can go deep into OneLake security and how that's going to really enable organizations to manage their data.
Yeah, and as some of the things that you and I have seen as MVPs, right? They have a lot of good vision for it and everything. So I think your live stream on Wednesday with them is going to be super valuable for everybody. There's a lot that they're looking into doing, a lot that they already know that they're doing. So yeah, definitely. There you go. There's the whole segment on it that you said, right?
Well, and we'll see more in that. I will also say, I think one of the things that OneLake and Fabric is going to bring to us is visibility into how our businesses actually work. So we'll have direct line of sight into how much is driven by our enterprise data sets, and more importantly, line of sight into how much of our business is not directly run off these enterprise data sets. And I think this is going to be a big eye opener to people because today, if we think about what happens with our enterprise data sets, we manage those in our enterprise team, and 100% we're focused in on making sure that's up, available, dealing with additions, subtractions, tickets, all that stuff, all consuming, and we believe that is the world of data. The reality at many companies is they've got an army of spread marts and access databases and downstream processes that are completely invisible to anyone outside, in IT. That it's that shadow world that exists out there. So I have a feeling that there's going to be for the next decade, there's going to be a lot of awakenings to how much of that exists in organizations, and don't be afraid if when these things start, you realize that, oh crap, it's 98% of our stuff isn't directly built in the enterprise, right? And that's 100% going to be fine. What that allows data engineering teams to do and management teams to do is understand how they need to right size our teams, right size our efforts in order to achieve what we're trying to do, right? And what our mission is when it comes to working with data. So
And,
I
and
want.
a lot more collaboration, and with that collaboration becomes governance, right?
Yep.
Governance, and we're already seeing that there's things built into Fabric, and we could get into this in a future episode, right? But the concept of what it's calling, a purview, um, look, there's new admin type things, and purview is one of them. We're not fully set up to show that today, but you're going to be able to kind of trace the lineage of your artifacts and everything to feed into your governance organization, to have that collaboration, to talk about where data is, where it isn't, and all of that. So more on that to come.
Well,
So
and I think this is big, and we're going to pivot right over to your desk because we're going to show you. Kevin actually has a data flow going in that we really want to
mhm.
get to. But I think the big value here is by giving them the tools that data engineers use. Hopefully, we could start to, when we see where what's all being used, we can find nexus points of utilization of like, inside that spread mart or spread process area, we could find the highest used pieces. And if they've been brought into Fabric, and those people who are managing have started to use notebooks and they've started to use these enterprise grade tools, the process to go from, okay, it's in some remote spread mart, to, hey, you know what? Let's bring this into an IT managed resource, is it's going to be much easier, and we're going to cut down on the potential massive amount of refactoring that goes along with that. Or we can ask that team to do a huge chunk of that refactoring, and then move it into an enterprise source. So 2 bits there. Let's go. Let's get to data flow so we can actually show loading
Yeah.
some data, right?
Okay. And just to wrap up the capacity type of thing, right? Now, remember I showed the admin portal view as each user. So I brought that up as we switched over to my desktop. On the left here, the the tenant admin sees all the capacities that get produced, right? And this is under trial. Because each user, from my understanding, I haven't tried it, but each user can create a trial. And then you could come in and I think you could add more admins to it. As here on the right side, I'm the capacity owner. I'm the one that started it. Oh, it doesn't look like I could do more things here, but at least you could see it and see what that capacity
Ooh,
ID
you could
is.
change the capacity. I did not know. Even a
Yeah, you
trial.
could
That's
come.
cool.
Yeah, I could come up here and rename this if I wanted to. So as an admin, I should be able to do that as well. It looks like I cannot assign multiple people to be the capacity administrator. But what I believe you should be able to do is, like, if I come over to, I'm going to stick here. Let's go into the workspace that I created as. I don't see it there. Go back to this one. Go back to the workspace that I created, the Fabric workspace. I should be able, make this full screen, to come in here to manage access and add unable to find results. Oh, search for the add people. So here now I could say add Kevin, and I added them as a viewer, right? But I could change the role and make them an admin. And then Kevin, now my main account could end up using this workspace and using my trial capacity. And I think each user could set up a trial capacity. So that kind of, I think, wraps up what we wanted to show there. Let me knock down some of these screens. And I want to show a little bit about using a Gen 2 data flow. I think most of the people coming from Power BI side, and this is going to kind of touch on a question that I think somebody put into the queue of getting to know Fabric to help maybe change their career. But I would also say use the skills that you have already that you've learned through Power BI and then keep step stoning into the next things. So a lot of us are very familiar with Power Query. Dataflows is just Power Query online. And so what I have here is I have a workspace that I just called Contoso Fabric, and I'm going to bring in one table from a Azure SQL database and store it into my lakehouse. One of the things, and I just had to redo this last night. We are in preview. Things change weekly. I have a second example of something that failed last week that is working this week. So, and then what I noticed is when I created the data flow, these 5 objects below were automatically created. And Chris and I were talking about this before we went live, and we were wondering if we created a whole new data flow, if 5 more objects would be created or it's going to reuse it. So we'll see if we have enough time to test that live. If not, we'll come back with an answer next week. But I'm going to open up this data flow. It's already produced that it's going, all it's doing is reading a database, and it's getting the store. And the one thing I do want to point out here is I get off of this database, I have columns that have spaces in the names. And this is going to be one of the biggest things that people are going to run into. The format that Microsoft is using, called the Parquet format, and then they have Delta on top of that. Parquet format does not support spaces in the column names. And we are all very, very used to that. So just kind of be aware of it. Even during some of the trials that we had ahead of time, I talked to even other MVPs that were going, I can't understand why something's working. And we finally go, oh, wait, did you check this? And sure enough, that's what it was. So always check your column names. The nice thing about the data flows, this was recent. This I just noticed again last night. I could come in here and I'm going to add a destination as the lake house. And you're going to see here that the data flow is going to help me understand those column names in just a second. So I'm going to choose lake house, and it's going to come up, and I could pick my workspace, and I have my too many. I got my Contoso fabric. I'm going to expand that. And I'm going to choose this is the lakehouse I created, called Contoso DFLH for Dataflow Lakehouse. I could tell it a different name than what I have in the Power Query, but I'm going to leave it as store, and I'm going to say next. And what we're going to see is this is evaluating what's going to come out from the Power Query. A little bit slower than I anticipated. And I have an option to say I could either append or replace the data. I'm going to choose replace, but it's this item right here in yellow. Some column names contain unsupported characters, and those unsupported characters in my case right now happen to be spaces. There may be other ones, but definitely spaces is that. And it's asking, should we fix them for you? And I'm going to say yes, fix. Notice the ones that have the indicator here, right, of what our problem is, and it's telling us exactly, here's the other characters, can't have spaces, new lines, tabs, or any of these following characters. So let's say fix it, and you see it took the spaces away. All of our warnings went away except for this last one. And this is because this is a link from this table to another table. And so this type of object isn't supported. I'd have to, expand or a normal type of things that we do in Power Query. So now it's automatically fixed everything. It knows our data types. And if it needs to change the data types, I think this mapping, I think I've seen it change those before. And I'm going to say save settings. And now you can see down in this lower corner that I have my data destination as a lake house. I'm going to hover over that because there's more information that comes up. If you hover over the gear, you could see right away it's going to pop up, tell you the workspace it's going into, the lakehouse it's going into, and the table, and your update method of replace. So it's very easy to know what's going to happen. Let's go ahead and publish. And well, okay. You can see it, the gears going as the publish happens. I thought maybe it happened very quickly this time. The publish process takes just a little bit. And once that is done, I'll be able to hit refresh on it. Do we have any questions we could answer while we're waiting for that part, Chris?
So Jessica was asking about the well, not technically a question. I think the comment was the behavior for refresh, the append replace. That she was kind of mentioning that, but I think that is a huge new feature that we have, especially if you're talking about a data set that you need to snapshot. And just like what did it look like at a given period in time? This is going to be huge in expanding these capabilities in the service and the way we work. I do think that's going to cause some challenges for people when it comes to managing a star schema that they haven't had to think about before, but just a huge advantage.
And I'm glad you said kind of the snapshot type of thing, right? Because yeah, you could in your data flow in your Power Query, you could add a column, right? We'll call it a calculated column, right? That is just the date that the data flow ran, right?
Yep.
And now if it appends every single time, you're adding on, and you have a date that shows you a date timestamp showing you when you added that data in, and you could do other data engineering against that. And there was somebody I've talked to recently that kind of had that example. They wanted to grab something from their SQL database and just know the values on every day over day to start building a trend line. And
Right.
this is going to make it easier for them to do that rather than waiting on their back end IT people to add that into the database. Okay, so our wheel went away, and let me bring up the lakehouse first. And we're going to see there are no tables in our lakehouse right now, right? So there's nothing to expand out. So I'm going to come back over to the workspace, and this mode switcher, I'm starting to love this, right? Where you have multiple tabs down here, where I could switch from back to the workspace, and I still have my lakehouse open in this area. I won't call it a tab, or whatever it is. So I'll do my refresh now. That's going to run for just a second. It's not too long since it's only one table. And then we'll come back to our lake house in just a second. We could sing or something. Maybe we need like a theme song that as we have the little thing coming. I see Jessica.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, Jessica's asked about, does this remove the need for incremental refresh? And I'm going to say this is actually, it enhances our ability around incremental refresh, right? In fact, it might even increase the need of availability for incremental refresh because of this. So super excited to have this in. We just have to now get in and do more.
Yep.
And Kevin, are you doing a lot yet with the new multitasking feature that they added in? Have you used that?
That's the feature that they called it, right?
Yep.
I called it the tab, right? So they're calling this the multi. Actually, I hit refresh and it went away. That's interesting. that is the feature that I like. I expected this to refresh a whole lot faster. Oh, here it is. Look at that. The data flow showed me it was still running, but as I bring back up my lakehouse, there's my store table. It shows me all the columns. It has indicators telling me what the data types are. And as we look across, just by clicking on it, it previews the data for us. And we could resize some of these things. The other thing to kind of realize is all of the dates in Parquet files are going to be date and time in there. It really doesn't shorten them up. Um, so just kind of be aware of that. These have come in by dates, and I think we're kind of used to seeing this. When it adds a time, it just adds it at midnight. But do be aware you're always going to have a time portion on your date as well.
And I
So
think Stina from Texas has a question that I think everyone else has, which is, where does this exist? If this lake house is created, where does it exist? Where is everything?
mhm.
Does that?
So the lake house, and let me see. I'm going to go a little bit off, Sharon. I hope I could bring this up over in a different area because this may help a little bit. Can you just take my screen off for a second while I get this
Sure
ready?
thing. You can just go together. And while you're prepping that, I'm gonna like explain at a high level, then Kevin's gonna go in and show this. One of the big things that we do with Microsoft Fabric is we're going to. I mean, this has always been a cloud architecture, but understanding what that means is now very important because we are now separating out our storage from our compute. These are
Hmm.
two separate things now, okay? So, and that's why, like, if you've been watching the pricing things, now suddenly we have a compute price and we have a storage price. So, if you're buying premium capacities, there's going to be some storage that comes with it. They haven't outlined how much you get or whatnot, but everything you store in a workspace gets created. Think of it like a folder, right? A secured folder, a completely scalable storage locker. So all of everything that you bring into Fabric gets stored into Delta files or Delta Parquet files. That's in a folder that can be used. The compute and the logic for that is stored in workspaces. That is one-to-one with that folder so that you can use that there. And I think Kevin's about to show us this
Yeah,
right now.
I have this right now. So you'll see there is a OneLake, what do we call it, application or whatever. There's an add-on that you could install that's like a OneLake browser. So you see I have that highlighted here. And this is just in my Windows Explorer. And I'm clicking on that. So you can see over on this side, here are all the containers that I'll call it that have been set up. And you can see I have the one that we called World Cup Dataflow Lakehouse. So this is what I'm trying to get is the visualization, right? That everything just exists somewhere on storage that Fabric decided for us, but it also consolidates it down that we could see it in that one place in OneLake. And it's just different containers. And here's one World Cup DF underscore LH, and it gives a dot lakehouse. It's a file folder.
Can you
This
zoom
is
in on that,
actually,
Kevin?
yeah, hang on. Let me go back because I think this needs to be refreshed. So I don't think this is the one. Yeah, that doesn't. This one because I had to delete that workspace and I created it almost with the
Yeah.
same name. But let me pick another one. Okay. So what is it? Control 2. I think I could, no, that's not it. I'm going to double click on it. And then what you'll see is now it starts showing me from my lake house the same view that we've kind of seen before. We got files, tables, warehouse system. And you can sit here and click through just like you would, um, with normal Windows Explorer. And if you set up folders, you'll have folders here. I'm hoping this kind of just when we say where do the things live, right? Fabric automatically provisioned the storage for us where to put it to, and then it presents it as it's just one file system, this one lake file system, if we think about it that way, that we can navigate through. Each workspace is a folder, and then each object type, like a lake house or a warehouse, would then be a folder at the next level. with them whatever folders or objects you set up from there. I hope, Chris, does that sound like it helps explain the question?
Yeah, I think that does, right? So we've
Yeah.
got our data stored in the files, and I'm gonna wager all the code for the lake house is somewhere in there too. I don't know exactly where that is, but I'm sure it's there somewhere. But then our compute is managed in the workspace.
Yeah, let's look at, because I have one that does have a data warehouse, and I just happen to call it gold. We'll go through this, but maybe in this warehouse. These almost look like they could be my queries. It doesn't, it just says that. Let's see if we could open this with Notepad. Yeah, I don't know exactly what that is.
Yeah.
Maybe this wasn't good. We tried. This is, you're going to see, we're going to do this on this live stream. We'll try things live that we can't. Oops, sorry. If you want to stop sharing my screen again, I'll get it set
Sure.
up. We'll try things and fail live. We're not afraid to do that. So
And this is all very new, right? So everyone is learning this. So please feel a degree of comfort with that you're not alone in this space. I mean, we've been heavily involved in this for a while. Yet, these things are changing. A reminder: Microsoft definitively upgrades the service once a week. They have 2 other windows for deployments for either security or bug fix items. And even at those times, sometimes features go in. So this is an ever-changing landscape that we're all going to be working in and getting accustomed to. But that's kind of the benefit as well as the challenge of working in the cloud.
and so I know we're getting towards the end. I think we're probably good on the demo. I see there's a couple people that you've recruited some help, and they're posting good links inside here. The website that I see as one of the last links, fabric.guru, is one that I've been following quite a bit. He's another Sandeep's articles. He's another MVP. He is very deep into this. Definitely take a look at what he has out there. Chris and I were talking again before the live stream. We do want to, I think we mentioned this at the intro. In the spirit of the data gods, right, we really want to highlight the people that are putting good content out. He's one of them, this fabric.guru. When I saw that he created that, I was like, oh, that was brilliant, right? And it just shows you what level that he's at. So definitely follow him and look at things. He has a date table that I want to highlight on a future episode here that I started experimenting with. So any other questions, any other kind of wrap up that we should get into, Chris?
Well, and I do want to remind people that, yes, this is a place to go. We're going to be here Fridays, 7:30 to 8:30, just like we're doing today. We've got kind of some series of topics that we're starting to put together. But if you have something that you want to get us to cover, please hit us up over on Twitter or LinkedIn. Both Kevin and myself are very active on both platforms. And we are happy to cover those items. We will be revisiting. Last week, we did the first 3 pieces of the MS Learn to get started in Fabric. We are going to be touching on those, I believe, in some future coming sessions. So please come back for those as well. But we are super excited about this. So thank you guys all for taking time out of your day to join us. Kevin, before we go, do you have any parting words?
Yeah, I think one thing I didn't work in that our friend Alex Powers always talks about is the P in Power BI is for patience. I think the B in Fabric is be patient. As we kind of mentioned, even things that I thought I was going to show today, I revisited it last night. I mean, literally 8:30, 9 o'clock last night, I looked at what I was going to demo, and all of a sudden I noticed things changing and not working. So realize we are in preview. It is going to change. It is going to get different. Hopefully that different always means better. we will try to point out things that we see. For our SML crew, there was something that I showed that appeared to be, I would call broken last week. And I retested that. I was hoping to have time to show it today, but it's fixed now, right? And it was something that when we were talking about it, got all the way back to the highest levels in Microsoft. I think people were fixing it beforehand. But again,
Yeah.
be patient because it's going to get different. It's going to get better. And we just all got to learn
Learn to be patient.
to be
With
patient.
that, we got Fly. Have a great day. Peace.